the second wife isn't someone she likes terribly much. They don't get along, and she makes that woman's life pretty miserable a lot of the time.
She does. But I don't think Peony realizes what she's doing.
Well, she's a 16-year-old girl for one thing.
That's right. She's 16. She's jealous. She's in love with the man who was supposed to be her husband. She sees that this wife, what I actually refer to as the second wife, because Peony was supposed to be the first wife, doesn't really want to be in that marriage, doesn't really love that man. And so Peony decides she can make this wife into the perfect wife, not for the second wife's benefit, but for her husband, because she loves this man. She loves him. And so she can see that he's unhappy with this new wife. And she does what she can to give him a proper, good wife, although it ends up, having some pretty tragic and sometimes comical results.
Gets it right with the third wife. At least I was happy with that.
She does, because she's learned how not to interfere. And
because she was literally taking over sort of the second wife's body to have sex with.
That's right.
and then it comes to the third wife, it's like, I've chosen to not go into the bedroom. It's like, wise Peony. She was learning.
Well, she was learning, that's right, because even as a ghost, you do learn, and you learn from your mistakes, as we all do, hopefully. But she also looks at that third wife very differently. She comes to look at that third wife more like a daughter. And so in this way, I think Peony does get to have this whole range of experience that she could never have a child herself because she's a ghost. But through the third wife, she does get to experience the love and the pain of motherhood.
Also an awful lot about mothers and daughters in the book, because her mother, she has a difficult relationship with her mother.
And don't we all?
I think it is the most problematic of, father-sons are easy compared to mother-daughters, I think. And then the mother with the grandmother also. And the three generations, very different, and each with secrets.
That's right. And mistaken interpretations of what happened. I do think that we're linked from grandfather to father to son, from grandmother to mother to daughter, almost like with this kind of invisible string that links us down through the generations. And there are these wonderful things that get passed down through the generations, wonderful things that make us who we are. But there are also things that happen in the past, tragedies, secrets, that also have this ripple-down effect. And they do affect us right now, even today. But we don't necessarily understand where those things came from. We don't understand what happened because they're secrets, right? We don't know, but they have come down and had an effect. But there is this emotion that also holds these generations together. And in Chinese, there's a very particular written character for mother love. And it's composed of two elements. One part means love, and the other part means pain. and I think that there's something to that from both directions, from a daughter looking at her mother, but also from a mother looking at her daughter.
There's a commentary on the opera.
That's what really inspired me, was to read what these girls had written. They were 16 years old. They wrote it in the mid-17th century, but it's still, some of it, still is so true and pertains to today, but also some of it is extraordinarily profound. And these were young women who lived in almost utter isolation, who had never met a man beyond their father or husband, but they had a really remarkable understanding or insights about love and about the connections that we have between people, and how that changes through life. I think that was one of the things that was really interesting to me, was that Peony herself, the first wife in real life, her name was Chen Tong. She was completely isolated. She was unmarried. And so that colors what she wrote in the margins of the opera. The second one, the second wife, Tanze, she was a young married woman. Well, that's a very, she was only 16, but that you're automatically in a sort of a different time in your life, in a different situation in your life, and that colored what she wrote and how she interpreted love and responsibility. And then the third wife, here she was married to a much older man. She had a young child. So as a mother, even though she also was just 16, 17 years old, she was at a very different place in her life, even though she was the same age as her two predecessors. So she, when she says things like, oh, you have to watch out for your daughter when she gets to be a certain age, she's really talking from the perspective of being a mother, which is very different from that very first wife who was writing from the perspective of being an unmarried girl living in isolation.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
The book is Peony in Love, a novel. I've been speaking with the writer Lisa C., and Peony in Love is published by Random House.